Let's be honest. When you think of ancient Egypt, what comes to mind? You've got the giant pyramids, all that golden treasure, and probably a mummy, right? A creepy, bandaged spirit rising from its tomb to get revenge on anyone who dares to wake it up. It's a total movie classic. But how much of that is real history and how much is just Hollywood? Well, let's dig in and find out. So that's the big question here, isn't it? Is the mummy's curse some kind of terrifying ancient magic, or is it actually a modern myth that we all just kind of fell for? I think the answer is going to surprise you. You see, our whole obsession with this idea really explodes back in 1922. That's when King Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered, and it was almost completely untouched. The entire world was hooked. But then, a few people connected to the expedition started dying in mysterious ways, and the newspapers, oh, they went wild, spinning this story about supernatural revenge. Okay, so to figure out what's real and what's not, we have to go straight to the source. Let's look at what the ancient Egyptians themselves actually wrote on their tomb walls. What did these so-called curses really say? Well, there is a massive difference between the movie version and what was actually written. In the movies, you get mummies coming back to life, vengeful spirits haunting people forever. But the real inscriptions, they were basically just fancy keep-out signs for tomb robbers, warning them about judgment from the gods, or, get this, attacks by actual, real-life animals. Yeah, listen to what Egyptologist Daniel Potter says. It wasn't about casting some evil spell. It was a pretty straightforward warning. If you come in here and mess things up, you'll have to answer to the gods. Simple as that. And they used some seriously intense imagery to get the point across. They talked about the deadliest animals they could think of: crocodiles, hippos, lions. These are things that could actually kill you. The message was super clear. Break into this tomb and something horrible and very, very real is going to happen to you. Okay, so we know what these warnings were like, but that brings up an even bigger question. How often did they even show up? I mean, was every single tomb covered in these kinds of threats? And here it is. This might be the most shocking fact of this whole explainer. Out of the thousands of ancient Egyptian tombs archaeologists have found, they've only found these kinds of threatening inscriptions in about 40 to 50 of them. That's it. It is an unbelievably tiny number. Just look at this chart. It puts it all into perspective. The tombs with curses make up maybe 1% of the total. The other 99%, nothing. These curses were absolutely the exception, not the rule. And here's another thing to think about. Even if a tomb did have one of these warnings, who could even read it? It's estimated that only about 1 to 5% of ancient Egyptians were literate. So your average tomb robber probably wouldn't have even been able to understand the hieroglyphs. So if these vengeful curses were so incredibly rare, what did the ancient Egyptians actually believe when it came to magic and the afterlife? This is where things get really interesting. The core of their belief system around magic was something called Heka. And this wasn't just about zapping people with spells. It was seen as a fundamental divine power that helped create the universe and keep it running. For Egyptians, magic was a force for order, not for chaos. And look at how they used it. It was overwhelmingly for positive, practical things. Magic was your protection from everyday threats like snake bites or scorpion stings. It was used to heal people who were sick and to keep away troublesome spirits. It was all about preserving life. This shows a totally different view of the dead than what we see in the movies. People would actually write letters to their dead family members, asking them for help with their problems. The dead weren't seen as monsters to be feared. They were seen as powerful ancestors who could lend a hand. So, if the real history is all about protective magic and super rare warnings, how in the world did we end up with the scary, bandage-wrapped monster we all know today? The whole idea was kind of bubbling under the surface for a while, even had stories about it way back in 1869. But the discovery of King Tut's tomb in 22, that was the match that lit the fire. When the guy funding the whole dig, Lord Carnarvon, died the next year, the media just lost it. And by 1932, Hollywood sealed the deal with the classic movie, The Mummy. The monster was officially born. But you have to ask, why did the media jump on the curse story so fast? Well, believe it or not, it was because of a media blackout. Lord Carnarvon had sold the exclusive story rights to just one newspaper, The Times of London. All the other reporters were locked out. And since they couldn't get any real information, they just started making stuff up. And what sells papers better than a spooky, supernatural curse? And you have to remember, the world was totally ready for a story like this. It was right after the horrors of World War I. People were desperate for a bit of escapism, a big adventure story full of mystery and treasure. King Tut and his deadly curse. It was the perfect story at the perfect time. So, at the end of the day, the legend of the mummy's curse tells us very, very little about ancient Egypt. What it really tells us about is 20th century media, the power of movies, and our own fascination with a version of the past that's more romantic and mysterious than it is real. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. If Hollywood could take a simple trespassing warning and turn it into one of the most famous monsters of all time, what other parts of history have gotten the same treatment? It really makes you wonder what other facts we think we know are actually just great stories. Thanks for watching.